this special podcast where I'm joined by Nanki Chadda, very senior sports psychologist, and Surbhi Date, who's a strength and conditioning expert. Both of them have played sport at very high levels, and they have come back to help Indian sport understand sports science and get better. Let me share a little bit of a context. I spoke with a very respected shooting coach some days ago, and that piece prompted reactions from nearly everybody. I just wanted to take the conversation forward and see where we are in terms of understanding where sports science is and how it can be integrated with our coaching system so that Indian athletes get better with their performance. Let me hear your opening thoughts, Nanki, on this subject.
Thank you for having me on this panel. And I think the topic that we are discussing today is very much needed and important. Talking about coaching and the support, sports science and the support staff. I think now sports is changing where it's becoming a little more technical. There's more awareness out there in terms of how it's not only about technical aspect of the game, but there are other areas also that need to be looked into for an athlete to perform to their optimal level. So I would say it's an extremely important topic that needs to be addressed. It requires for sure more awareness within the Indian ecosystem.
Surbhi?
Hi, Raj. Hi, Nanki. First of all, thanks for having me. Very happy to be here today. My thoughts on this topic is, again, like Nanki said, it's very much needed that we try not to shy away from it. It's quite obvious that in the sports ecosystem, it's not just the head coach and the athlete anymore. We have a huge sports science team with it, and we need to be able to understand the dynamics of this and be able to work with each other, not against each other, but we need to be basically on the same page. And all of us should have the same goal in the mind, which is athlete well-being and performance. That's my thoughts.
So I wonder, this is a question to both of you. I wonder why then, we are all in agreement that we don't have to work in silos. Jaspal Rana, the shooting coach that I spoke with some days ago, told me very clearly that this is all about teamwork. It is no longer only the coach. It is no longer only the athlete. It's all of us coming together and taking Indian sport forward, especially at the elite level. Now, when we all understand this, would you, from your own experience, you don't have to name athletes, you don't have to name sports, you don't have to name federations that you work with or organizations that you work for. From your own experience, can you tell me what are some problems that stop us from working in silos? Nanki, let me start with you first.
So what I think is an athlete, when they enter sport, I think the first point when they enter, it's the parents that play a very, very big role. Because mostly parents push athletes to get into a particular sport at a young age. And as they get more and more involved within the sport, the coach takes over. So the role actually from the parent shifts to the coach, where coach is kind of guiding them through the process, through everything. So I feel when that transition happens from the parents to the coaches are pretty much the driving force, which they today also are. I'm not saying they're not the driving force. But what I feel really happens is the focus completely shifts on the technical aspect of the game. And it's all about the technique, even the coach. So somewhere the coach is trying to, based on their own knowledge, trying to become their sports psychologist, nutritionist, or strength or conditioning coaches. But what I personally feel is now there are specific individuals handling these different departments with their own expertise, knowledge. So I think it's more about giving that control, loosening that control, and coming together and really understanding that together as a team, one can really develop the athlete as a whole, a more holistic development. Like a quote that I often really believe in, and it's applicable to sport, is that if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. So I think it's all about working together in tandem. And it's not like bringing in a nutritionist, a sports psychologist, or a strength and conditioning coaches, taking away the main role of the coach. That's not what the support staff is there for, but it's more about supporting even the coach and the athlete. So I feel, just answering your question, I think it's that transition period, but also kind of understanding in that transition period, apart from the coach, what are the other stakeholders that can help the athlete towards their specific goal.
Surbhi, you have some thoughts on what are some problems that stop us from working in silos?
Yes, definitely. I'm just going to add on what Nanki said about the coach being the sort of the nucleus of the whole cell and us being part of the cell. Coach will definitely have the most, what do you say, the highest responsibility. He or she has to play a role of, what do you say, take credit for the win, but also be a scapegoat. If the athlete loses, it's the coach that takes the whole blame. So it's a very, very important role. What I would like to add to that is, as support staff, if all of us do not understand this very basic concept, it's going to be very hard for everybody to work together. What happens nowadays is any other support staff will come in and will try and not take credit per se, but try and I'm falling short of words over here, but would want to try and have a piece of the part. And that, I think, is kind of wrong. You know, you're working in a team, so you need to be able to understand that it's not about taking that part, it's about contributing to that whole, you know, and not really like not try and stand out in the whole, you know. It's the whole team that's going to stand out, it's not just you alone. And if that happens, the coach is obviously going to have problems. And if that's the case, then I'm completely with the coach 100%. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is, it's got to be both ways. Okay, sometimes it's the coach who's kind of gonna feel insecure that, okay, earlier it used to be just me and my athlete, and now I have this wider group of people with me. The coach is going to get protective, right? So what I'm trying to say is, it's got to be both ways, where both teams need to stop feeling insecure and work towards the athletes.
Yeah, we will get to trying to find a solution and understanding how the coach can be more inclusive, and how the support staff can be more supportive. We will get to that in just a bit, but let me try and understand the levels of understanding of how much sports science can help athletes. Let's try and understand it from different perspective. Let's start with athletes. Surbhi, from your own experience, do athletes, modern day Indian athletes, fearless as they are, do they understand that sports science can really help them? Or are we still stuck in an era where athletes are told and they believe that do 10,000 hours of work and you're fine, you're ready for the world? Where are we at this point of time in terms of athletes understanding the importance of sports science?
I think athletes do understand the importance of SNC, of psychology, of physiotherapist in silo. They do understand how each discipline is going to help them eventually in performance. So now I'm talking on a generic level. We will always get those athletes who will do 1,000 push-ups every single day. And that's just how it is. It's going to take time to change. But like from my 9 years of experience, I have seen a shift in the athlete's perspective and in the athlete's understanding of how each discipline will help.
That's very good to hear. Nanki, has your experience been similar, or is it very different?
I would say it's been very similar. Of course, a few years back, I think I would say when I was playing my sport, there wasn't any mention of the other aspects. You know, everything was taken care solely by myself or my coach. But I think now the awareness is more. that there are different aspects. But I would say, like Surbhi said, the awareness has increased. The athletes are understanding the importance of different aspects. But we will always, I would say, have those some athletes who might feel that, okay, no, this is not needed. And I would say that specifically in terms of sports psychology. So a lot of athletes who are coming to me, I think it's all about awareness of what sports psychology really does. So they are very, very comfortable going to a nutritionist or a strength and conditioning coach because they do understand that for their sport, they need the physical strength and endurance. But when it really comes to the mind, they're a little skeptical or unclear exactly how sports psychology works and how this can add value to their sport. So again, just to summarize what I've just said, there has been a shift, there has been a change, there is more awareness, and athletes are more getting into sports science. But I would say where specifically psychology, sports psychology is concerned, I think that is somewhere requires more clarity, even where coaches are concerned, parents are concerned, in addition to the athletes.
So I get the sense that while the modern athlete understands that it's important to seek help from, seek support, not help, seek support from different quarters so that they become well-rounded personalities and become better athletes and better human beings. The stumbling block, if I can use that word, is probably the coach, a little bit toward the parents as well, because the reluctance stems in from there. Because they have grown up in a very different era and they sometimes don't understand the various roles that each support staff, especially the scientific side, can play in the performance enhancement. Am I right in understanding that parents and coaches are perhaps not quite open to the influence that sports science exerts on athletes at this point of time, Nanki?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I would say, again, there are some coaches and parents who really understand the value. But yeah, we have those set of parents and coaches who don't really understand or would want a quick fix, would want that, okay, technically the athlete is sound, but a support staff, you send them to a support staff and want results a bit more quickly rather than seeing it as a process. That's not a quick fix. It is again, like the technical aspect, the physical, the mental, and it is a process that is required to develop that particular skill. So I definitely feel there is resistance. I think the resistance can be because of lack of clarity, and also that need that, okay, if we add any additional support to the athlete, it must give us instant or quick results.
Surbhi, you agree with that? That parents and coaches
Absolutely.
Are perhaps a little bit unclear about how much support they can get from different sports science areas.
Absolutely agree with that. From just my experience, when I look back to speaking with parents and coaches about their athletes, you do kind of get a bit of resistance when I say, "Oh, let's try putting him or her into just consulting with a sports psychologist. It might help." And you do see that hesitation. And probably that's just because they just don't know how it's going to help. They don't know what sports psychology is. Nanki, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is just from my observation where I do see it. You don't get like, okay, yes, let's do it. You don't get it that often.
Completely agree with you there, and I think one issue, specifically in terms of sports psychology, why that happens is because it's not tangible, right? The progress or the progress is not visible to the eye. It's how you feel, how you feel basically, what emotions, the way you're thinking. I think that's the biggest challenge I, as a sports psychologist, face, or anyone within my field face, because of that objective marker. Like with strength and conditioning, over time they see the strength building, endurance building. Technically, can be by recording it, a before and after. But when it comes to the mind, how do you really put a marker to a reliable marker to it.
That brings me to the question: how do we address this vexing problem? Yes, we know India's got potential. India's got talent. Yes, we know the influx of sports science in India is growing by the day. A lot of you are getting educated overseas and coming back. Some of you are planning to go overseas and come back to India and contribute to Indian sport, because Indian sport is poised at a very beautiful space at the moment. But how do we then change the culture? Is it incumbent on the sports federations? Is it incumbent on the state associations? How do we change the present scenario? Otherwise, 10 years down the line, we will still be talking about how we are not accepting sports science as a means of enhancing performance. And when I say sports science and when I talk about a performance enhancement, make it very clear, I'm not talking about doping here. I'm talking about how each branch of science can help a particular athlete get better. We've seen it work in cricket. I think cricket has set the benchmark for a lot of sport in the country. And we have graduated in terms of understanding that, yes, sports science can play, but it has to percolate down to the lowest level. How do we achieve that? Nanki, let me start with you.
No, very valid question, and I would say whether it's federations or any organization, but I think the process to inculcate or integrate a sports science team would, I feel, start with the coach. Because yeah, we have the management that's managing the day-to-day functioning, the other aspects. But I think the coach, I would again say the coach is the driving force when it comes to the athlete's overall development. They are basically the main stakeholders. So I feel reaching out to them, making them understand, aware that it is an additional support to you and your athlete, and not that we are there to kind of take over, but it is something that we, as different individual specialists, can support you and your athlete. So I feel it needs to start with the coach, whether it's in a federation, organization, or in an independent academy or a coach, I would say.
Thank you. Surbhi?
Yeah, like Nanki said about head coach and support staff, there's a clear difference in the names itself, right? Head coach is the head, support staff. Support staff, we're there to support, we're not there to head. So it's as simple as that, right? Secondly, I think to better the system, I would emphasize a lot on coming up with coaching science and coach education courses. From what I have seen is, generally speaking, we have a very, very accomplished player who comes with a lot of experience, who's put in the role of a coach. But have they actually learned how to coach, right? That's my first question that comes to my head. Have they actually learned how to work in an interdisciplinary environment? And they need to kind of now accept that, okay, we're not 50 years back where it's just the coach and the athlete, end of story. You have to be able to work with the whole interdisciplinary organization now. So that awareness needs to be built now, and it's kind of mandatory now. Look at Neeraj now; he's roaming around with his coach, his SNC, his physio the whole time. So it's kind of mandatory now. Come on, let's just accept it, right?
So we just talked about coach education and how we can integrate some of what science can do into coach education. I'm sure our diploma courses in Patiala at the NIS do have various, they are all introduced to various facets of sports science in their own coaching program. But I don't think this is embedded deep enough in the minds of the coaches. Should we then, I mean, look at your own experience, your own education experience in terms of acquiring skills to be a sports psychologist, Nanki, or you a strength and conditioning expert, Surbhi. In your own courses, do they even tell you how to go about understanding what coaching is all about? Do they even teach you how to work with coaches? And is that sorely missing from the coaching program, coach education program in the country?
It's definitely missing. Definitely how to coach is definitely missing. That's why you see a lot of textbook SNC coaches in the industry now. They just don't know uh, how to deal with people, or then just know how to coach. Like, you're a coach, you need to know how to coach. I was lucky enough that I I worked as a rugby coach as well. So I completed courses in coaching science for Rugby India. That's why I kind of went through the process of how to coach. So that's why I am aware. But about the other coaches, I don't think, like you said, there is no awareness of coaching science or coach education as such.
Nanki?
Yeah, I would agree with Surbhi. So even during my training and my course, so in sports psychology, there is a big aspect working with coaches. Because we do believe that coaches, they invest a lot of time and effort with the athletes. So they are at the end also human beings, having their own emotions, expectations, and the pressure does get to them. So how do they, coaches themselves, handle their pressure, emotions during crucial events? And is that something that gets transferred onto the athletes as well? That if the coach is stressed, are they easily uh, aware of what is going on, or they knowingly or unknowingly transferring their own pressure and anxiety onto the athletes? So yes, a big part of sports psychology and training was communication skills with the athletes and the coaches. Coach athlete relationship is a big one. So how an psychologist can actually help deepen the relationship between a coach and athlete. So yes, that I feel is deeply missing within the Indian ecosystem.
For both of you, my last question before we run out of time on the show. Uh, my question really is, have coaches felt threatened that sometimes you take over their roles as coaches as well, rather than just be the psychologist or be the strength and conditioning coach or be the nutritional expert or be the physiotherapist? Do sometimes coaches feel threatened, Nanki?
Yes, absolutely. And that is something I have experienced and faced in the past, that coaches do feel insecure and a bit threatened when athletes come to me. Now, the reason, I can't pinpoint one exact reason, but what I gauge and what is my understanding of that is because when athletes come to me, information is all confidential. So sometimes the coaches do feel a bit insecure what is being shared in those sessions that I'm not privy to. So what is that information because of the case of confidentiality? Saying that, not that I isolate the coaches from the process. That is not my main aim when working within a multidisciplinary team or within an organization. But yes, only brief information based on what the athlete allows and agrees to can be shared with the coach. But rest is all confidential. So that is a big reason why coaches do feel threatened in terms of what is being exactly shared in the session.
Do coaches feel threatened? I would say some do and some don't. I've worked with some excellent coaches, especially at IIS when I was leading the judo SNC program, where we had an excellent relationship. It was very transparent and there was no threat or insecurity at all. So we did very well. But then thinking about other coaches that I worked with, yes, I have worked with a lot of coaches who have felt extremely threatened or insecure, just me being in the picture. And maybe part of me was my fault that I wasn't open enough, or I wasn't approachable enough, or you never know, right? वो कहते हैं ना ताली कभी एक हाथ से नहीं बजती, so it could be that as well. I don't know, but I have definitely faced that issue where the coaches just do not open up to me at all. Like, no matter what I do, no matter how much I try to tell them, look, I'm on your side. I am, like I said before, I'm just supporting your program. I'm not taking over the program. So just relax. But yeah, in short, yes and no. I also feel the friction between the coach and the SNC coach or the physio generally is because there's such a thin line between all three disciplines, where the coach does understand a lot of stuff about SNC. Even though the SNC is the expert, the coach does understand a lot about SNC and physio, and they tend to cross the line at times, and which can be fine at times. You never know. But because it's such a thin line, it's a difficult one to handle, I feel.
I don't think sports psychologists will ever venture out and say that this is what's happening with them as well. But I know coaches around the country who believe they know a lot of everything, including psychology, nutrition, physiotherapy, rehab. I think we must begin to trust specialists a lot more. And if it can happen first at the national level and percolate down to states and then to districts, we will be in a very, very good space sooner than later. So I'm a student of communication. I've always been and will remain a student of communication, while I also remain a student of sport. And I believe that communication can resolve a lot of these issues. I think that at some point of time, if people like yourself come together with coaches, sit down and have heart-to-heart conversations, especially interdiscipline, not just in terms of science, but in terms of different sport as well. I think we can come together and find solutions that can help India move forward as a sporting nation. We are a sports crazy nation, but if we have to become a sports science understanding nation, I think we need to have more conversations in public domain. To me, this is the first step that Nanki and Surbhi, both of you, have taken towards ensuring that more and more conversations around sports science and coaching and the integration and enhancement of performance. To me, it's a first step. So thank you very much for being part of this journey of mine and for helping Indian sport, both of you. Thank you so much for that.